Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the First Fridays in the Exchange Art Talk on this November Friday. I want to say a few thank yous. First of all, thank you to First Fridays in the Exchange. These are very difficult times. They're uncertain times. So please check out our website to see what's happening in the neighborhood. There are artists and galleries and businesses there, and they're trying to figure out how to connect to people right now. Thanks also to Collective Broadcast Co., which is helping with our tech tonight. And thank you especially to our guest tonight, Dr. Heather Igloliorte. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us tonight. Heather is from Inuktitut. She is a curator. She has organized exhibits that have toured nationally and internationally. She's a scholar. She's an associate professor of art history at Concordia and is also research chair in circumpolar Indigenous arts there. She serves as the special advisor to the provost on advancing Indigenous knowledges at Concordia. She's written prolifically on Inuit art, Indigenous art, and issues of decolonization. And she is the co-chairperson of the WAG's Indigenous Advisory Circle and co-curator of the upcoming inaugural show at Qaumajuq, the new Inuit Art Centre here in Winnipeg. And I could go on and on, Heather, but with all the stuff you've got going on, but then we wouldn't have any time to talk about the art. So I guess we should just get into it. So can we just start off by talking about, I guess, something that happened quite recently, I guess about 10 days ago, which is that the Inuit Art Centre, which had a kind of nice, serviceable, informational name, but it got a new, better name. So do you want to talk about the importance of names and the importance of language and the meaning of that new name?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Allison. I'm so happy to be here tonight.
Yeah,
it's Friday night in Winnipeg, just starting to cool off again after we had summer for a couple of days this week, and now we're back to normal. I'm so excited. It wasn't the news so exciting. I'm absolutely thrilled with the naming process. I'm co-chair of the Indigenous Advisory Circle for the Winnipeg Art Gallery, as you mentioned. My co-chair is Dr. Julie Nagum, who's a scholar at the University of Winnipeg and a research chair. And the circle is made up of almost 20 people, and they are Indigenous peoples from all across Manitoba and Winnipeg, of course, and then also from the 4 Inuit regions of Inuit Nunanga, which are the 4 regions within Canada. And then there's also a member that is Inuit from the Inuit family. She's a Inupiat from, or a Lutik outside of Canada. And so we had always thought, that it would be really wonderful if there was an Inuktitut or Inuktitut name for the building. And over the course of the summertime, we held a series of online, of course, virtual sessions where we invited not just circle members, but also other language keepers, ones that represented the 7 Indigenous languages of Manitoba, as well as the at least one person from each of the 4 regions of Inuit Nunanga. And together, those language keepers, I'm not one. I'm facilitating, but not contributing. I'm a learner, not a speaker. And so together we sat in this kind of virtual space together and talked about concepts for the space and what we felt when we experienced the building and looked at pictures of the inside and the outside. And it was really just a really beautiful process. One of the things that came through very clearly, Dr. Stephen Boers, who's the CEO and director of the WAG, he joined us at the beginning of the first naming session and gave us a virtual tour and walked us through all the different spaces and said, here are some of the places that it would be wonderful if you thought about names for them. So not just the buildings, but the spaces inside. And so we were able at the end, ultimately, to provide a name for not just Qaumajuq, the new building, but also a Anishinaabe term for the existing Winnipeg Art Gallery building to recognize the First Nations and Métis people that are already here. And then inside the spaces, there is at least one name for each of the Inuit and Inuvialuit dialects, as well as one named by every nation. So it's incredibly exciting and
Yeah.
really, really beautiful, I think.
Okay, and tell us what the name of the building and the center means.
Well, like I was saying, when we got that sort of virtual walkthrough tour, not everyone's been able to go in the building, of course, but when we had that tour and got to see how bright and lit and how much light is going to be let in by the new renovation. Like, the Winnipeg Art Gallery before really was kind of a stone fortress. The door was just hidden in that beautiful facade and what's the name of your Manitoba stone?
Tyndall stone.
Yeah. So it's like that, but it really is kind of like a wall. And now they've opened up the whole original entrance so that is all kind of glass and you can see into the gift shop. And then also here, so exactly, you've got that whole promenade is lit with, I think 2 stories of glass on the main level, as well as you can see in from the street, or you will be able to, right into the visible vault, which they've been waiting all day. So the outside of the building, Qaumajuq, means it is bright, it is lit, but the other terms that we've used, many of them also play on the ideas of light or other kinds of concepts that came up in our conversation, like the visible vault and that whole main area that houses it is called Inuktitut, which means our relatives or our relations. And so it's a way of acknowledging that we feel like the artworks aren't just artworks, but they are also made by our family members and our ancestors and our kin. And so we wanted to really name that space in a way that recognized that for us, some of these things have a spirit that is living, that we want to be able to be in a relationship with. And so it's so exciting to take them out of the vault and put them into this big glass space where everyone can get to enjoy them. It's awesome. They've been doing it all week at the WAG. I've been seeing pictures on Instagram. And
neat.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting. And watching, I mean, I know a lot of Winnipeggers, we've been kind of watching it, gradually going up and then sort of opening up. And it is really exciting. And I've been in the gift shop, which was really kind of stunning. And the idea of light, I think that, kind of light in the darkness, which I think really resonates with winter places, it just makes a lot of sense. And as you're talking about, like, the idea of sort of kinship and relationships. And so how do you think that the building and the architecture of the building and what's in it will kind of maybe reflect and even help shape a kind of maybe a new relationship for a lot of audience members with the Inuit art?
Well, I think that for one thing, I think the space is, like we were just saying, I think the space is going to feel really, really welcoming. The whole main part of the gallery is going to be free and open to the public all the time. And the galleries will, as Dr. Boris just announced, the galleries are going to be free to Indigenous peoples throughout the entire building, which I think is a bit of a revolutionary act, but it's wonderful because, it's our stuff. Like, a First Nations family from Treaty 1 should be able to walk in and go anywhere in the building and feel like, that it is a space for them as well. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we talked about a lot of the circle meetings is, like, how do people feel like they're really welcome in this space? How does it feel like, instead of something that's made for Southern Canadian audiences first, like, how do Inuit come in the building and say, I feel like I also have some ownership over this space. Like, this place is here for me as well. And so we talked a lot about wanting to have those artworks accessible. So they're in the vault. I keep doing this, like, it's kind of a big clover shape. It's hard to tell from the drawings, but it's just gorgeous. And so that vault goes 2 stories up into the sky. You can kind of see it on the image there, and you can walk all the way around the outside. And then it also goes down to the basement and makes kind of the foundation of the building is also the collection, which I think is really lovely. And so it also says, I think that just the vault itself really makes a bold statement around what the foundation of the collection is and why it's important to people and why it's so critical that it be here in Winnipeg because of this really important, massive collection. And also, of course, the one on loan from the government of Nunavut that's also here. So we're talking about nearly 20,000 works. Like, it's incredible.
It's incredible. And even, whatever you can see of them in that visible vault is even that's not everything. And, it's and that kind of, that it seems to physically represent a kind of accessibility and transparency, which I think is really great.
Well,
So,
like most museums in the country, the majority of the collections are never on display. There's so much more behind the scenes that is visible. So in this way, it really is kind of revolutionary how accessible the collections will be.
Yeah. And so let's talk a bit about the inaugural show, which is going to kind of welcome people into the building and introduce them to a lot of people to this art. And so what were the parameters? How did you go into it thinking this is what we really want to do just in this first show? And I mean, it seems like it was a very collaborative process right from the very beginning. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is by nature, it's a collaborative process because we're working very closely with the WAG staff, but we are also a 4 Inuk curatorial team. So we sort of organize ourselves through the regions. Like I said, there are 4 regions, and there's one of us from each of the regions. And so myself and my co-curators, Asiniuk, who is from Nunavik, Qaumajuq, who's from the Inuit region, and Krista Uliuk-Zawadski, who's from Nunavut. I'm, of course, from Nunatsiavut. And so together we kind of represent all of the regions. Not that we're trying to, be like an encyclopedic show. That doesn't feel possible, but we are definitely trying to bring knowledge together that hasn't been done before. And we've been very conscious of having elders included in the exhibition and senior artists from other generations, artists from the really critical history of Inuit art. That story has largely been told through the Winnipeg Art Gallery and other major institutions in Canada. And then also artwork right up to the present day with emerging artists and like really contemporary work.
Yeah.
So everything, like I try to say, like it's everything that you love about Inuit art, and then so much more that is coming in. So we've got a lot of installation art and new media and video work and wearable art. There's clothing that's been made. There are photographs. Photography is huge right now. All kinds of things, like things to see really close up and things to step back from at a distance, painting, drawings, all kinds of stuff.
Wow, it must have been so hard to choose. I mean,
it was a process.
Well, let's look at just a few of the things, like, and I can't even overemphasize that these are just like a few little things out of this massive show. But so should we start with William Noah?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I will say the images that we're going to look at this evening are largely works that are in the show from the collections, because we have the show is about 100 pieces. About 60% of that is from the 2 collections, the Winnipeg Art Gallery and the Government of Nunavut. And then the remaining 2 halves are about split between new commissions and loans to the exhibition, which include international loans. So like from Greenland and Alaska.
So the new commissions, that's like work that would have never been seen before. It's specific for this show?
Brand new, made just for this show.
Very exciting.
Seeing it here first, but you're not seeing it here tonight.
No. Well, we got to leave them wanting something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The only one that I think that you can see online is a work that was commissioned through a project that I was working on last year. And it is the sealskin spacesuit. And if anyone Googles that, you'll get to see a sneak peek.
Oh, man, that sounds amazing.
Going to be, and it's just phenomenal. But we're going to talk about some other work.
Okay.
Tonight.
Yes. Yeah. So do you want to just say something about the William Noah?
Yeah. So William Noah is an incredibly important artist to the history of Inuit art, a very, very well respected artist and hunter. And I think that this work, which many people think about as having an entirely spiritual dimension as well, but I think it also reveals the deep knowledge of hunters who have to be also butchers on the land, who have to have an intimate knowledge of anatomy and travel and habitat and diet and all these other things in order to be the kind of skilled hunters who are then able to provide for their families. So I think that this work has been interpreted in a number of ways, and we're just so excited to have this and other pieces that I think reference both shamanism and then also Inuit knowledge in really exciting ways.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and what about migration?
So this is a work by Joe Telly Rene, and we really wanted to include it in the show because it's not the only one. It's actually, unlike many artists, this is Telly Rene made multiples of this work, and they are all incredibly precious and very important.
Because I thought I'd seen some that looked slightly different when I was.
They come out of a memory from his youth, where his family that were living on the land had to make a migration across water, and it was such a harrowing experience. He's in a Qaumajuq here. That's like it's a big boat. We have large boats, and then we have single person kayaks. So. This is a scene out of his youth where he remembers this kind of harrowing experience. And then throughout his life, although he made other kinds of works, he was also a printmaker of great renown, but he continued again and again to this, to the theme of migration because of the impact that it had on his life. And it's a really famous example of one of these sculptures was the highest grossing single Inuit artwork of all time. So it also it was kind of a blockbuster in the larger Canadian arts milieu as well. It sold for, I don't want to say hundreds of thousands of dollars. So $500,000. An exciting thing to get to see in the gallery space. And also I think an important part of Inuit history is revealed in this.
Yeah. I thought too that, the sense you get of the sort of vulnerability but hopefulness, like it really, and that it has this specific history from his life, but it also, it's very timely. It's very topical right now. In a way, it's very universal. The idea of migration, human migration, the human flow.
I think that's very insightful, Allison. Maybe we'll steal that for the catalog. It is though, the thinking about the kind of sacrifices that have to be made in order to for your family to survive. And, that is certainly something that has stuck out to him and is a theme throughout all of his work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. What about this work by Mary Pizziolak? Am I saying that properly? This little seal head is in this.
It's
so simple. It's so clever. I just love this work.
I love it for the absolute. Not simplicity, but just the execution of such a work where it is just just the head popping out of the water and the plinth does all the work for you and sort of interpreting it all the way. Everyone that sees this work is just instantly in love with it. It's tiny, but I think it's so special because it really shows that kind of the Inuit eye on the Arctic and the perspective that is only known to Inuit, and just the idea of that moment, because you can wait. Hunters can wait for hours at a seal hole, waiting for a seal to appear. So this is it's a kind of a magical moment as well. And so it's great to see. Magical is not the right term, but really you can sense the sort of immediesi of this and how quickly absolutely. It's an instant, so I love this piece.
Yeah, I love it. And it kind of it interacts with the space in such an interesting way that, in a sense, it turns the plinth into water in a way, because the seal is cresting, and I just love that. Now, the textile piece by, can you pronounce the artist's name, please? Sorry.
It's so tiny on my screen that I can't read it.
Oh, okay. Irene Avalakriac.
Avalakriac, yeah.
Okay.
She is a brilliant member of a number of really, really important wall hanging. These are felt wall hangings. They're quite large. Yeah. And we're going to have a lot of them in the show. We've commissioned a new wall hanging, and then we have works out of the history. And that's something that we're trying to do in the exhibition, is to show that there is a long continuity of practices that are happening in the community still today, and that these are not things that are we think of them as this is in the past and this is the present and this is the future, but rather that we are there is a thread, literally in this case, a thread that draws all the works and practices together. And so we're going to be grouping things according to not just materiality, but also that kind of practice. So maybe For example, there is this really gorgeous felt vest in the exhibition that is from, I think, maybe the 1980s, and we'll be perhaps putting it in juxtaposition against these textiles, because while they are very different materials, and we wouldn't normally group, what we would call like fine art alongside of something like clothing, but in our exhibition, we're trying to make different kinds of conversations between Inuit artworks as we feel that they exist in the North.
Right. And I think, she learned to sew from her grandmother, I think, and that kind of connection was very important in her work, I think.
It's still a huge thing today that artists learn through their family members, and so we have I think a lot of artists going to art school now, but then just as many people are still grounded in the passing on of intergenerational knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. And I sometimes see the word self-taught, which I just think that doesn't mean anything. That there's no such, you're taught by in other ways maybe, but it's
there's more to art training than just art school.
Exactly.
Say. Yeah, exactly.
And the thing I love about this piece, I think, because it was quite a week, with the election and all down there, down even more south. And I found this work, it just made me feel better, like not in a sentimental way, but I just felt uplifted and sort of happy when I looked at it. And, and I don't mean to sound trite here, but it's almost like it anticipates emojis, like the idea that you can compress all this expressive emotion into a really simple graphic, image, because
I love that you see that.
I feel like she's communicating happiness.
Yeah. I love that. Smiley emojis.
So, and then this next work I think is by Pudlat. Do you want to talk a bit about this one?
Sure, I would love to talk about Pudlat. He is one of the earliest, most significant graphic artists. I think he was also a sculptor sometimes, but much better known as a graphic artist and printmaker, and an incredibly important artist to the history of Keenite, which is Cape Dorset art, but also Inuit art more broadly. I think he might have been the first Indigenous artist to have a solo exhibition at the National Gallery of Canada. I could be wrong about that, but I think it was him. And he is an artist who is best known for combining elements out of his world with the world that was fast encroaching on the Arctic. So in this one, you can see an airplane in the background, and he's, no one rides muskox. I just want to be really clear. Like, don't try it. Don't try this in the North. But you can see that he's here, and he's got his dog and his dog whip, and he is like lashing at the airplane, like trying to maybe harness that power. And so he's an artist who is known for his sort of syncretic blending of what was happening in the North in his time, and then also the influx very quickly in the 20th century of helicopters and boats and airplanes and everything else that was happening all at once. And instead of shying away from that, he sort of joyously brings it together again and again. And really exciting juxtaposition type kind of works.
Yeah. Okay. And the next one also has an airplane, actually. And this one is by David Rubin Pictukin.
Oh, no, I'm looking at Elizabeth Inuktitut.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I missed that one. Okay, well, let's talk about that one then instead.
There might be airplanes in this one as well. I can't see it.
Well, actually, I guess
it looks like there might be. Yeah, there's an airplane and a helicopter
there you
go. As well.
Yeah, kind of birds and airplanes, kind of. Yeah.
This is a fabulous work. The curator of Inuit Art, Darlene Coward-White, had Elizabeth in the WAG working on these. You might have seen them. I think they were done a couple of years ago, so 2014, and it was created in the WAG. This piece has been turned into a massive curtain inside of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. I don't know if I'm telling secrets right now or not, but it wraps around an entire theater that is right now kind of a glass box, and so it's been used to enclose the space. It's just gorgeous.
Wow.
And so the drawing itself is 600 centimeters, so 6 meters long, and it's done in segments. And we're going to have it entirely installed inside of the exhibition because the exhibition space is massive. I can't wait for people to see the building. It is simply gorgeous. But yeah, so this piece is a feature. It was made at the WAG. The artist came in, sat on the floor, and drew it with oil sticks over a period of, you'd have to ask Darlene how long it took her to make this incredibly massive work, but it follows seasons of activity. And that's a theme that also comes out in the exhibition, that Inuit talking about and looking at, not just, I think some people in Southern Canada might think of the North as being perpetually frozen, like permafrost ice sheet. I mean, I guess we know that that's not the case now because of global warming as well. But I think that for a lot of Inuit artists, we deeply enjoy our spring and our summer and our fall, and the seasons might be a little bit shorter, a little bit different. But to us, the Arctic can be an incredibly lush place in the summertime. And so one of the things that you will see throughout the exhibition is a focus on showing the Arctic in all of its depth and complexity, past, present, and future. And that includes seasons as they change. So it's exciting to get to see this work up close because I think it's only been on display maybe once or twice before. So I hope
that is exciting.
Yeah. Socially distancing, come to see it.
Right. Yeah, I guess we'll have to talk about that later. But okay. And what about this next work?
So this work by David Rubin Pictican, he's from Qaumajuq, but he currently resides, I think, a little bit either north or south of Toronto. He's got a studio there. And this work is actually from a series that was done in the early 90s by Pictican, who is he and his brother actually they're some of the first artists to really take Inuit art in bold new directions with their work, following artists like pudlat. And I don't know if they ever saw each other's work or not, but Rubin Pictican was an artist who was one of the first to explore the history of colonization in his sculptural work, to be critical of the role of Western society and settler colonialism's presence in the Arctic. Some of them dealt with in various ways. He was a residential school survivor. And so when he grew up and sort of worked through that experience and how it affected his life, this is one of a whole body of works from a series called, I'm going to forget what the name of that exhibition was now, but it'll come back to me. Between Two Worlds. That's what it was. So this was from an exhibition that was actually at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. So now, of course, in the collection of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. Really, really important history and period of time, body of work, and artists to the whole history of Inuit art. And so we really want to honor that era and the artists who kind of paved the way forward for other artists to do other critical explorations of art history and past.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay, let's just go to the next work. Oh, there it is. Okay. I love this work. So graphic and gorgeous. And yeah. Tell us a bit about this artist.
The WAG has a number of works by Ningyo TV. She's had at least one solo show that I put there. And we selected 3 pieces for the exhibition because we just love her work so much. This one we have affectionately, the curatorial team and others have been calling it Uncle. And it just reminds you of everybody's uncle.
Cool
you can
uncle.
see that he's got that Inuk spring tan on, which is where, if he lifts his goggles, it'll be like a white line with the brown. You can see it on his neck, how she's kind of playing with that. And he's got his knapsack cap on. That's like a kind of a crocheted hat. Like he's going off for the day to do some hunting. So we just, it's called Weathered Hunter, but we all feel very affectionate about this piece.
Yeah. Her work is, I just love it. The one of, the girl like unzipping and then the fox. I just love that piece.
So she's such a smart artist and just so many little things in her work to surprise and delight.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can't afford one of her works, you can buy, she has a children's book too, I noticed, which is kind of swell. You could buy that at least.
Fantastic.
Okay. And now this next work by Maureen Griffin. Wow. Yeah. And she I mean, she's got this really interesting practice and brings in a lot of environmentalist kind of issues, it seems like. Do you want to tell us a bit about her work?
I'm so enamored of Maureen Griffin's work. She is, first of all, she's an amazing person, and she is an Inuit. And this piece is, as you can see, it is polar bear bones in clear resin. The disc is about 2 feet high, 2 feet around. And so just today, so it's like about this big. And just today we were talking about where can we put this piece in the exhibition so that people can really appreciate how spectacular it is.
Yeah.
She's very much a contemporary artist. Her work is, she does large scale land-based work, installation. She was just included in Nuit Blanche Toronto, which is North America's largest largest arts festival, and she'll be in next year's Nuit Blanche as well. This one was all virtual, of course. And so she's a very big, very important artist, but also, like I said, very grounded in her culture and goes into really draws on and works from the land in her practice. And that the land, of course, includes people and animals and flora and fauna. She's been included in a lot of contemporary art exhibitions in recent history. It's just like, I love the way her mind works, the way that she sees things is really dynamic and inspiring.
Yeah. She had a work, the breathing hole work that was here, I think last year, and like just incredibly one of those time-consuming processes, but just really, I think.
Is that the work with the sealskin on the push pins, the like teeny?
Yeah, like it's like thousands and thousands of push pins, and it's on some building material or something. So it's this mix of
Yeah. She was on the cover of Inuit Art Quarterly last year. Like, she's just kind of blowing up right now. So I'm so happy for
her. Okay. And then there's the next work, which is this really beautiful necklace. And I think in the Western art tradition, often their works are kind of classified as, fine art or decorative art or useful arts. And it's a very hierarchical line kind of, and certain media are put into this hierarchy. And often it's a hierarchy of gender too, like the men's work is kind of, but, and those distinctions, it seems to me like that's not an issue in Inuit art. It's all of a piece, and it's all, all creative work. And if it happens to also have a function or be wearable, or that's just part of it and part of the tradition and part of the contemporary practice too. Yeah.
I don't know what to add except for that you're spot on with that. I think that I'll just speak from my own perspective. Of course, I always just speak for myself, and I don't speak for like a whole,
right
across the Arctic. But when I was doing my dissertation research just on Inuktitut, I've been trained as an art historian. I have a PhD from a Canadian university, so I'm grounded in that background that you're talking about. And when I was traveling throughout Inuktitut, this is one of the questions that I asked the 60 or so artists that I was interviewing. And what I found talking to people and saying like, oh, so I'm here, I want to talk to all the artists in town. Like, can you point me to who you think should be spoken to? And by and large, the people said, that expressed the most admiration for people who we would consider to be craftspeople. So basket makers, seamstresses, people working in traditions that have been passed down for generations. And so I think that when we think about those practices that are most admired in Inuit communities, it's going to kind of upend that fine art system entirely. Like you said, it's sort of like everyone is a bit of a maker. When you live in the North, you can't just go to the store and pick up whatever you need. Like my dad was constantly like turning things into other things, like making his own skidoo parts, or you know what I mean, like kind of making whatever he needed, or whatever was needed at the time. And so everybody kind of does a little something. Like my uncle makes ulus out of old saw blades, and my aunt was a doll maker, and could sew, and my grandmother was a seamstress, and my dad liked to draw, and my brother's a photographer. Like it's kind of like everyone has a kind of a practice that is what they do to pass the time, or more. And so I think that like you said, it's the term artist doesn't really come up a lot in the community so much as like craftsperson or sculptor or carver. And it's really, there isn't really a hierarchy, like you're saying, for sure.
Yeah. And would it be true to say also that that Inuit art is like just way ahead in terms of gender equity? Like
it's never been an issue.
It seems like it's always been, there have been lots of women involved in it, and your curatorial team, it's all women, isn't it? And
we're not all women. We are 3 women and 1 non-binary identified person. But we are. But that in itself is also something that probably has not been done very often in the history of Inuit art. And then we are also we're all. Sorry, what was the last part of the question? Beyond that.
Just that,
the gender diversity. Well, I mean, you'll see it in the exhibition for sure. Yeah. But there have always been women stone carvers and women printmakers and women who work in all different aspects. There are also men who are basket makers and can sew and make beaded jewelry, and that there are some, you do see like more of one or the other based on stone carving can be quite a physical activity, so it's less common for women to be involved, but certainly none of the sort of Western heteropatriarchal boundaries about keeping women out of that practice. It's rather like, what is your preference and ability? There's this amazing NFB film from the 60s showing the Qaumajuq Ashevak carrying a stone slab for carving into the studio. And you can kind of see that even just the printmaking process, you've got these 2-inch thick stone slabs that are cut in that are used for stone cut printmaking. So like it's still, even printmaking is like a kind of physical activity, like really
handy.
Well, I mean, the stone cut prints, and so like then you see them like chiseling it out, and the other artists in the studio doing the like chiseling and so on,
pressing.
And so so there is a kind of a physical dimension to it in some ways, but it's really not the same as the sort of old boys club of Western art history. I don't think that we have ever had those same kind of gender norms that others have. And what you'll see in the exhibition is that we have people painting and making photography and doing sculpture and installation. And it's really those kind of issues. I have yet to see them really come into play in the same way that they do in Western art history, for sure.
Well, that's very good. Yeah. So there's that beautiful, elegant piece of jewelry, and then this teapot, which I really like too. Can we just advance to the teapot? Oh, and I looked at a couple of Michael Massey's, and there's some of them. There's one that has these 4 legs, and it looks like it's very elegant, but it looks like it's about to run away, like with your,
He takes a to the next level all the time. Mike Massey he's from Nunatsiavut as well. He lives in Stephenville, Newfoundland now, where he's had a studio for decades, and he is an artist who trained at the same art school that I went to, NASCAD, where actually another artist in the show is currently a student, an emerging artist is there now, Bronson Shock. And then other artists in the show as well. NASCAD has always somehow been a supportive environment for Inuit artists. I don't know where that comes from, but I went there somehow. Michael Massey is an artist who When he was in art school, his grandmother passed away while he was studying jewelry making and metalsmithing. And he started making these teapots in memory of the time that they would spend together. He grew up with his grandparents in Labrador for a part of his young life and was very, very close with them. And so he's also very punny. So all of his, a lot of his teapots have tea, like unit tea, this is subtle tea. This is the one in the Winnipeg Art Gallery collection. He's a very prolific artist, but many of his works are in private collections and not in public, so you don't get to see them as much as some of the other works. There was a major show at the Rooms Provincial Art Gallery of Newfoundland and Labrador last year, but it's exciting to see his work. Or no, sorry, no, not there. He did a 50 for 50 show for his birthday at the Spirit Wrestler Gallery in Vancouver. I was thinking about something else. Yeah, so he made 50 works for his 50th birthday year. So he's an artist
for yourself.
Yeah. Right. Like, nice to set a goal and then rush towards it as your birthday approaches. It's a hard deadline. So he is an artist who is really important to me and I think to Inuit art in general to include in the exhibition because this might not seem like a contentious work. Looking at it now, you're just like, oh, it's a delightful teapot. It kind of looks like a
beautiful.
It's beautiful. When Mike Massey first debuted on the pages of Inuit Art Quarterly, I want to say the early 90s, maybe late 80s, but I think early 90s, he had just a little square in the bottom of one of the pages, and there was a black and white reproduction of what he would call an ulu bowl, which is like a bowl where the stands are made up of ulus, the woman's knife, the curved knife. It looks like this vessel. And so just this little tiny dish, and it was made out of metal. And the former editor and director, Mary Bell Mitchell, who I worked for when I was a student in Ottawa for years, told me that when they published that little metal bowl in a corner of the magazine, she had never received so much angry mail from people who were outraged that they would dare to call something made out of metal Inuit art. And so to think about how far we have come and what that history must have been like for artists who were starting out and wanted to do something a little bit different and experimental and be like artists and not be encumbered by, expectations imposed on them from outside. And so Michael Massey, to me, is one of those first artists to really push through that barrier and say, you know what, all work made by Inuit is Inuit art. Yeah. And if it has Inuit knowledge in it, if it refers to my family, if it's about my grandmother, then it's Inuit art, And so it's funny to think about now because, of course, now we've got, photogrammetry and 4-channel installation and, all kinds of wild things in the exhibition. But this to me, this kind of work is where it all began.
Wow. Yeah. That's really interesting because I wouldn't have thought that was like would offend people. Like
scandalous.
It just wants to give you tea,
What's more Inuit than tea?
Yeah.
I say as I
shared cup of tea. So I should just mention to the audience if you want to send in questions in the chat bar. I'm terrible at tech. You certainly can. But is there anything else you want to talk about, Heather?
No, is that our last slide? I'm just happy to kind of go through and get an opportunity to give a little bit of a sneak peek. Like I said, there's 100 works in the show.
Yeah.
There are some really wild and amazing things and inspiring, insightful stuff that we're going to be looking at. So I'm thrilled for the opportunity for people to get in the building and get to really see it and to see the building. The building is so gorgeous inside and it's huge and spectacular. That whole, as you see in this picture, that whole front of the building, almost all of that is one big gallery. And so you think about it as being this kind of daunting space, or maybe it seems like maybe it's going to be cold inside, but it's actually really warm.
Wow.
And just this beautiful expanse of a room where
so it's like an unbroken interior space.
That waving wall is the inside wall as well. Like there's very few straight lines inside the gallery.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can't wait to get inside. And when are we thinking that this show will open?
It's going to open early in 2021, but I don't think I'm allowed to say the date.
Okay.
Of course, I hope the date is the date. It's always COVID depending.
Yeah,
but
times.
we're feeling really confident about it because, of course, the Winnipeg Art Gallery can open. It's not going to be, the opening is not going to be 1,500 people in the building on the first day. It's probably going to be 50 people on the first day and 50 people on the next day. They're working really hard to make sure that it is safe and accessible for all.
Yeah.
And so, we've got contingency plans on contingency plans so that it's really special. And then, of course, we're also really working hard to make sure that it is accessible to people online, so that Inuit who are in the north will be able to also experience it. So we're building a really great web platform for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But Inuit especially. Because a lot of the artists, we were going to bring them all in for the opening, and now that's just not going to be possible. But maybe this summer, maybe later on. Yeah. There are variables because it's such an unpredictable time that we're living in. But
yeah, it is.
It's going to open though.
Okay. And yes, we just got a question. When is the exhibit slated to open? And you've kind of addressed that you're not allowed to say anything, or Stephen Borst will swoop in and,
I think no one wants it to open more than Stephen wants it to open.
Yeah, no, I know. It must be so frustrating, these delays. And and so there are contingency plans. They also asked about that. If COVID is still an issue, I guess, as with everything right now, people will figure a way,
we're definitely hoping to have some kind of virtual tour of the space. We will be doing our website in such a way that people with low internet access will also be able to see it, and not just
that's an issue.
Internet access.
Yeah,
that's an issue in the north.
Yeah,
we're planning a series of public talks so that people can get to meet some of the artists, especially the emerging artists in the show. It's a very exciting platform for them. So we're working on it on a lot of fronts, actually. So thanks for that question.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess, thank you so much, Heather. I just really appreciate talking to you, and I'm all revved up now, so that's good. And I'm sure everyone in the audience is too. Thank you for your insight and your knowledge and sharing it with us. And in these crazy times, just talking in any way we can is good. So thank you very much, Heather. And thanks to First Fridays, and thanks to everyone out there. And question: how long will the exhibit be shown? So once it does open, how long will it be open for?
That is a question that is still up in the air, but definitely through the end of the summer. So there'll be lots of time if you want to plan your visits around it. There'll be lots of time. It definitely isn't coming down in less than 6 months, but where the end point is now depends on a lot of shifting calendars. So by the time it opens, we'll know when it closes.
Right. Okay. And someone asked, can you pronounce the name of the building again? And I would appreciate, because I've seen it written phonetically 2 ways, and I wasn't sure which one was correct. So can you say it again?
It's Qaumajuq. Qaumajuq. It is pronounced like I said, we did the circle naming with people from different regions, and the 4 Inuit regions actually have 7 or 8 different dialects inside of them, like major dialects. And then in some dialects, there are communities that have different dialects.
Okay.
So it is complicated.
Okay.
But this is a word that doesn't mean something else in another language, which sometimes they do in different versions of Inuktitut. So that's really important to have straight. So it is a word that translates or closely translates other dialects. Like, it means the same thing across the north.
Okay.
And it can be pronounced with a bit more of a h at the beginning, or more of a k sound, but it's Qaumajuq. Qaumajuq. You say it like any of those ways, you'll be golden. I say as a non-speaker.
In a couple months, all Winnipeggers it'll be just falling off our tongues, I'm sure.
Listen, all of the pronunciations are on the website, wag.ca. You can go and read a little bit about what the words mean and how to say them. And there's like a little sound bar, and there will also be
that's
and the people who are doing the speaking are the people who participated in the naming. So it's even more exciting, really. Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you for that question.
That's great.
And thanks again. And I guess we'll wrap up for this month. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Heather, again, for taking part. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Allison. This was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
Great.
Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend.
You too.
Okay.